My girlfriend's crazy idea made me a princess. I always considered myself ordinary, even a little dull. My life revolved around routines that gave me comfort, but also a sense of monotony. I worked in a small marketing firm, sat in traffic every morning, and spent my evenings with my girlfriend, Emily. She was everything I wasn't: spontaneous, adventurous, and always dreaming up wild plans that often made me feel out of my depth. Yet, despite her free spirit, our relationship was the one area in my life where I felt secure. Emily and I had been together for almost 2 years, and in all that time, I never once questioned our compatibility. Sure, I didn't always understand her wild ideas, but I loved her passion. And she loved me for my grounded nature, or so I thought. But lately, I had felt a quiet dissatisfaction creeping in. It wasn't that I wasn't content with Emily or the life we built, but somewhere deep inside, I felt as though I was living in someone else's shadow. I wasn't sure where I was going or what I was meant to do. Every day felt like a repeat of the one before, and I longed for something more. I couldn't quite pinpoint what it was, but the world around me felt too small, like I was trapped in a box of my own making. Emily had always been full of life, always pushing boundaries, and it made me wonder if I was living the life I wanted or the life I was supposed to have. Maybe I had settled without realizing it. Then, one night, as we sat on the couch, Emily's eyes sparkled with that familiar mischievous glint. She had something on her mind. "You know," she said, a playful grin spreading across her face, "I've been thinking about something crazy. It's about time you step out of your comfort zone. What if, just what if, you became a princess?" I blinked, unsure if I had heard her right. A princess? The idea felt ridiculous, but somehow it piqued my interest. Emily continued, her excitement growing. "I mean, think about it. You're a queen in your own right, just waiting to be crowned. I bet people would be blown away by you if you just let go of all those self-imposed limits." I laughed, nervously brushing a lock of hair behind my ear. "Princess? That's a little far-fetched, don't you think?" But Emily wasn't backing down. "I'm serious. You have so much untapped potential, and it's time to stop hiding it. A little change, a little belief in yourself, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish." The idea hung in the air between us, ridiculous but strangely compelling. For a moment, I considered it. Maybe, just maybe, this was the spark I needed to break free from my self-imposed chains. The next day, I couldn't get Emily's words out of my head. "A princess," I muttered to myself as I stood in front of the mirror, looking at my reflection. What would it even look like to embrace that idea? What would it take for me to become someone extraordinary? The question gnawed at me as I went through the motions of my day. Meetings, emails, the usual grind. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the thought. Emily had planted a seed, and now it was sprouting. That evening, I decided to entertain the idea. I rummaged through my closet and pulled out my most daring outfit, something I'd never wear to work, a bold red dress that hugged my figure in all the right places, paired with heels that made me feel like I could conquer the world. It felt like a small step, but it was something. As I stood in front of the mirror, I took a deep breath. Could I actually pull this off? Could I channel my inner princess? Or would I just feel ridiculous? Emily came home, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. "Wow, you look incredible," she said, a knowing smile crossing her lips. "That's the spirit I'm talking about." She had a point. Maybe I wasn't quite a princess yet, but I was taking the first step towards something new. It felt like an awakening, even if just a small one. As the days went by, I found myself experimenting with this new version of me. Emily became my biggest cheerleader, encouraging me to take risks and step outside my comfort zone. At first, it felt awkward. The red dress was one thing, but I began to notice subtle shifts in how people treated me. I received compliments from strangers at the coffee shop, and my coworkers started looking at me differently. There was a certain power in confidence, one I had never fully embraced before. One afternoon, Emily suggested that I sign up for a public speaking workshop. "If you want to own your princess energy, you've got to use your voice," she said, her eyes full of conviction. I was hesitant. The idea of speaking in front of strangers terrified me. But there was something irresistible about Emily's encouragement. She believed in me more than I believed in myself. When the day of the workshop arrived, I stood before a room full of strangers, my heart pounding in my chest. I almost backed out, but Emily's words echoed in my mind. "You're a queen, just waiting to be crowned." With a shaky breath, I stepped forward, my voice barely above a whisper. But something magical happened as I continued. The more I spoke, the more confident I became. I didn't just speak about topics I knew. I spoke with conviction, with purpose. By the end of the session, I felt a sense of accomplishment I hadn't known before. Emily was there waiting for me, her eyes sparkling with pride. "I knew you had it in you," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. As my confidence grew, so did the challenges. People around me began to take notice, and not all of them were supportive. Some of my friends questioned my newfound boldness. "Who do you think you are, some kind of princess?" one of them teased, laughing dismissively. The mocking stung more than I cared to admit. Was I being arrogant? Was I truly deserving of this transformation? The self-doubt crept in again, threatening to undo everything I had worked for. I began to question whether Emily's idea was just a fantasy, something for fairy tales, not for ordinary people like me. The contrast between who I had been and who I was trying to become seemed so stark. I wondered if I could ever reconcile the two sides of myself. But Emily wasn't one to let me retreat into my old self. She took me by the hand and guided me through the darkest moments. "You are a princess because you choose to be. It's not about what others think. It's about what you believe about yourself," she said, her words cutting through the doubt. And with that, I began to believe her. Over time, my transformation became less about what I wore or the things I did, and more about how I carried myself. I embraced my newfound sense of power, allowing it to change the way I interacted with the world. I was no longer afraid to speak up, to take risks, to live boldly. One day, I walked into work, my head held high, and for the first time, I felt like I truly belonged. The people who had once dismissed me now looked at me with respect. Even my boss, who had always been distant, praised my recent contributions to the team. I realized then that being a princess wasn't about a crown or a title. It was about owning your worth and living your truth. The real test of my transformation came when I had to present an idea to a group of executives, something that could make or break my career. In the past, I would have been paralyzed by fear, but this time, I was different. I stood in front of the room, my heart steady, my voice strong. As I spoke, I saw the executives nodding, impressed by my confidence and clarity. When I finished, there was silence for a moment, then a round of applause. My idea was approved. The feeling of triumph was overwhelming, not just because I had succeeded professionally, but because I had finally embraced the woman I had always been capable of becoming. As the weeks passed, my life continued to change. I was more confident, more assertive, and more true to myself. My relationship with Emily deepened as I became more comfortable in my own skin. I had found my voice and my purpose, and I wasn't afraid to live it fully. I had become the princess I never knew I was meant to be, not because of a title, but because I had embraced my own power and worth. In life, we all have the potential for greatness, but it often takes a leap of faith, a shift in perspective, or a nudge from someone who believes in us to unlock it. Embrace who you truly are, step outside your comfort zone, and remember that you have the power to become the person you've always dreamed of being.